Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott. It's Viltrox's big lenses that have been getting all of the press. I've loved lenses like their 16mm F1.8 that came out for Sony last year. It's an incredible lens optically. I'm really anticipating seeing what their proposed lab series that is going to be even higher end optically, what it is able to perform and come out with. But the truth of the matter is that when you're traveling, it's rarely the big, heavy, highest performing lenses that you reach for, but you tend to reach for the lenses that are compact and lightweight. And that makes another Viltrox lens, the autofocusing 20mm F2.8, maybe the best Viltrox lens that exists for travel. Let me break down why. I've put that to the test on a number of occasions, but most notably, kind of what I'm going to document here is a trip that I took at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024 to Arizona. Now, just to give you a little bit of a backstory, I have got in my kit right now, I have got 6 wide-angle prime lenses, all autofocusing lenses, 24mm and under in my personal kit. The Viltrox is easily the least expensive of those 6 lenses, but it might be my favorite, at least when traveling. Particularly in this case, I was traveling with the Sony A7CR, which is a high-resolution but compact camera. It's kind of pointless to buy or to use a compact camera if you're going to saddle it with a big, heavy lens. So a lens like this is a perfect pairing for it. And let me tell you why. Now, looking at the lens itself, it doesn't necessarily blow you away. There's no bells and whistles there. There's no buttons, no switches, no aperture ring, not even weather sealing, none of those things. But what you do have is an incredibly compact lens that also happens to be high performing. The lens is only 65mm in diameter, or 2.6 inches. It's less than 60mm long, 2.3 inches, and weighs only 157 grams. That's about 5.5 ounces. It uses common, inexpensive 52mm filters up front, and it has a very useful 19cm minimum focus distance and a pretty high 0.17 times magnification. Inside, we've got a STM focus motor that is quiet and fast and basically does everything that you would want for either stills or video. I don't have any complaints about it. And I will note that there have been 2 firmware updates to this point from Viltrox that is continuing to improve and to correct for any kind of flaws. Great to see that there is some support there that is taking place. I can't say that I've seen the bugs that were addressed and improvements that were made, but I was already happy with the performance of the lens anyway. Now, optically is where this lens really surprises, particularly for a lens that is this inexpensive. It basically only has one kind of quirk slash flaw that's worth mentioning, and that is that at closer focus distances, like when I'm doing my test chart, you can focus in the center and get very sharp results in the center, but the extreme corners will be soft. If you focus in the extreme corners, they will be sharp, but now the center will be soft. And so you can't get both at the same time. But fortunately, out at real world distances, as we're going to explore in just a second, you can actually get nice, sharp results all across the frame. And so let's dive in for a moment and let's look at a few of the travel photos from this trip and how that they demonstrate some of the qualities that I really like about the lens.
Well, the first thing I want to quickly detail is how a lens like this, so inexpensive, held up on a very high-resolution Sony A7CR, so 61 megapixels. If we look at the center of the frame, we can see that detail and contrast, this is at f5.6 by the way, is just really impeccable in this portion of the image. You can see that the detail is there all throughout the frame. And, if you look at this cacti, tons of information there. As we pan off towards the edge of the frame, you can see that, yes, there is a little bit of erosion of detail, but there is sufficient detail all the way right up here into the corner where I think it's more of a depth of field issue than anything else. And so overall, I think that most people in most situations are going to be happy with that kind of detail. And in the center 2/3 of the frame, it is fantastic. Of course, one of the beautiful things about high resolution is the ability to crop in like this if I wanted to do something a little bit wider, and here I've eliminated a lot of that foreground where depth of field was not there, and so what's left obviously is very rich in detail. Now, interestingly here, though this is a wide-angle lens, it does a really nice job, I thought, here of just kind of capturing the late light, and you can see that the detail on my daughter-in-law's face looks great. And in this case, depth of field is fairly shallow, even though this is f5.6, but it creates a look that's almost a little bit of a cutout against the background. So again, pretty impressive for such an inexpensive optic. I also have been perfectly satisfied with the colors that I see, and you can see that the saturation levels are nice. Detail is very good here, and I mean, there's nothing about this image that I'm unhappy with. I also enjoy the focal length. It's not so extremely wide to be difficult to compose with, but it's a great kind of classical wide-angle focal length that allows me to get a great looking shot at a global level, but if you punch into the detail level, it looks great, right off into the distance, great detail there, and obviously it handled the transition to kind of a sepia monochrome really well. Now, flare resistance is not impeccable. You can see there's a little bit of a ghosting artifact, but you can also see here I have shot right into the directional sun, which in Arizona is extremely bright, and I have retained enough contrast so you can see my family there without any kind of issue, and there's still plenty of contrast, detail in the image, and it has held up just fine. Another interesting application is the ability to pop on a wide angle, and for this was a large group of family members that were together, and you can see that as I kind of pan across all the faces, that everybody's face is nice and crisp. There's a lot of detail that is there, and so it worked well for that application as well. The lens also has reasonable up-close abilities. No, it's not going to just dramatically blur out any kind of background, but you can see that the detail here at close focus distance is not bad, and the bokeh, again, it's not stunningly soft, but neither is it objectionable either, so another application. And as a bonus, I've also enjoyed this focal length to bring along for event-type settings, be they church-type settings. As you can see here, there's lots in the frame, and then also here in more an event-type setting. And you can see that as I look across the image, this is at f2.8, that it does get a little bit softer here in the corner, but overall the amount of detail is really fantastic everywhere, and again holding up right basically to the corner. So there's a lot good going on in the optics of this very inexpensive lens.
And of course, outside of just the optics, it's the convenience of have a lens that is so small and lightweight that you can throw it in a lot of different bags, even as a secondary option in a very small bag to have a wide angle perspective, which is how I have often used it. As a complement to bring along to maybe a zoom that this gets me to an actually wide. For example, I traveled with the Tamron 28 to 200 millimeter, so it's great, but if I wanted to go actually extra wide, this was a beautiful companion for that lens. So very, very useful. The lens that is most similar to it is another lens that I happen to own. That is the Samyang AF 18mm F2.8. Now the Samyang has the advantage of being just a little bit wider, obviously at 18 versus 20 millimeters. But as I compare the two side by side, which I just did a fresh review on 61 megapixel A7 R5, I found that the Viltrox is sharper, it has less distortion, it has a better build, it has better autofocus, a better manual focus ring, and it costs literally half as much as what the Samyang does, which makes it an easy winner in my opinion. This is probably the best wide-angle value, best bang for your buck you can get, now not only on Sony E-mount, but on Nikon Z-mount as well. You can get it for under $150 US or around 200 Canadian dollars. If you buy it from the Viltrox store, there's a code, Dustin Abbott, my name, you can use, and it drops another, I think, 8% off the price to get it down incredibly cheap. But this lens is just so useful. And most importantly, it takes photos that I'm perfectly happy with, and I don't feel like I have to compromise in terms of the size of what I'm bringing along. And when you're traveling, often that is the most important thing. They say that the best camera is the camera you have in your hand. And if you have a compact wide-angle lens like this, you're more likely to have a good camera along with you. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you want more information, you can look in the description down below where there's links to both my original text review along with my original video review if you want to do a deeper dive into the performance itself. But from a purely travel perspective, I don't know that there's any wide-angle lens that I would recommend more. This is an incredible value and certainly worth checking out. Thanks as always for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.